when it's on. All right, let's call the meeting of the March Urban Design Commission to order, and I will call roll. George McQuistion here, Brian Fitzsimmons, Betsy Brunstetter, Donna Cervantes, Jorge Charnico, Matt Guillory, John Robeson, Ben Sellers, Jeff Struble. Okay, that's 5, and we have a quorum. Okay, first item is the approval of the minutes. These are the January minutes. If anyone does not have, there are no objections, we will consider these to be approved via unanimous consent by the appropriate people. Cases withdrawn, none. Continuance requests, are there any applicants who would like to move their item from individual consideration to continuance request? Tim?
Mr. Chairman, Tim Johnson, on behalf of the applicant for case number 6B, the owner and their counsel have not had time to really dig through the staff report as it came out on Friday, and would like to continue it to next month.
To the April meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to continue item 15-00003 to the March meeting. April, sorry.
I'll second that. Okay, that's a motion by Fitzsimmons and Struble. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's continued.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. All right, consent docket, no items. Cases for individual consideration, 6A, 915 Northwest 8th Street. Michael?
Yeah, this item was continued from the meeting on December 17th, 2014, where the applicant had come before the commission with a request only for the demolition of the 2 structures on the site at that time. Due to some concerns expressed by the commission at that meeting, the item was continued in hopes of having some plans available to see the future development for the site. And it was continued to the February meeting. However, the applicant was unable to provide the plans to us in time for that meeting, so it was continued at that meeting and brought forward to today's meeting. The issues before you today with respect to the demolition are the same as they were in the staff report from December. We've identified the project or existing structures as some of the earliest homes that are one of the earliest houses that was built here in the city, and we've given the commission the option to determine whether or not they feel it's significant to the history of the district, and from that determination forward, you will be able to either recommend approval or denial of it. And then secondarily, with respect to the new development that's proposed, There was one issue with respect to a particular material that was proposed that requires a special consideration by the commission per the guidelines, and this is similar to a material that was approved by the commission on a house across the street probably about 8 months ago at 916 Northwest 8th Street. And so we've basically provided you the same information about that material. And then there's one item I did want to talk with the commission about with respect to the development standards for the project. These are 3 single-family detached houses on the same, currently on the same, proposed on the same lot. And that particular type of development does not fit any of the definitions that we have under the code for either single-family, 2-family, 3-family, 4-family, or multifamily for a variety of reasons. The intent of the applicant is to sell each of these homes individually. In order to do that, they must be sitting on their own individual lot. And it is the applicant's intent through the process going forward after today, if it is approved, to file for a request for a lot split that would create an individual lot for each one of these houses. And since there are no minimum lot sizes and no minimum lot widths in the DTD1 district, it does look as if it's conceivable to create those lots. And we came to that conclusion in consultation with some of the folks over in the zoning department. So we're pretty confident that that will happen. Now, we did not make that a requirement or a condition of approval. And if the commission has any concerns with respect to the fact that that may or may not be done, they may make that a condition of approval if they choose to approve the project. And I think that completes all the issues that we had for the commission to consider today, and we're prepared to respond to any questions the commission may have.
Any questions for Michael? Would the applicant like to speak to the project? If there are any questions that you might have for the applicant. And you intend to proceed with splitting the lots?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe they call it, when I talked to the zoning, they called it a minor subdivision. So the driveway is actually, the shared common ground driveway, and then each house has its own individual lots.
Okay.
And they had no objections as far as zoning goes. They said that. They gave me all the paperwork. I had to, I teamed up with the civil engineer so he could do that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I had one question, not huge, but based on reading your design program, you mentioned stucco in one part of it, but yet when you're calling out materials, you call out EIFS. Are you going to use stucco or EIFS?
We're going to use EIFS. I apologize. It's a bad habit calling them both the same thing, but they're 2 very different things, and we're going to use EIFS. So.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the applicant?
Well, I'm confused on how the lot split would actually happen. So is it a shared access agreement?
Correct.
And then with that lot split, with the code as far as following the scale and pattern, as far as our ordinances, which was some of the staff comments on the other case that's being continued, would this follow the scale and pattern of the current cottage district with houses in the back that don't have access except through what, in effect, is a new street from the street to the back house?
That would be a consideration that the commission would have to make a determination on whether they thought it was within the character or not. I know that there are some larger buildings existing in the district and some units in the area that do have structures in the rear. Some of them are garages, but I think some of them, in some cases, are units that perhaps probably not as large as these are proposed to be. But I think the footprints are compatible with the other homes in the district. And because the alley has been vacated and there is no The alley is not physically there, and there's no access available from the alley. All the access to the units in the rear does have to come from the street, so.
Yeah, so-
I would just add that the committee, there's not a formal process for the committee to weigh in on whether or not the lot split should be granted, but I think it's definitely in your purview to determine that the proposed development is, to what extent it is or is not in keeping with the guidelines.
Right, and that's, my concern, whether the scale of the houses are compatible or not as an individual house. We, in essence, have a 24-foot wide drive, and if you go forward with the 6 pattern, you'll have a 48-foot wide driveway, which in effect is wider than the streets that are there.
Sure, and that was probably just too much of a harsh concept to throw in at the end of the proposal. We are in talks with the neighbor to purchase the property, but by no means has that been, solidified. And I've spoke to Michael about if we were to go forth and buy that other property and do the 6 units, that we would have to address and not have that much concrete at the front of the house at that point. And we would oblige to that, because, that was simply mirroring those together, but we would definitely like to make that a lot more appealing from the curb, so.
Well, at a minimum, my current thinking is that at a minimum, this has to be continued, not just for the lot split, and understanding how that's going, because otherwise we'd be spinning our wheels making an assessment of something that very likely could change. And then I also have concerns about, which I understand is not in our purview, but it could change dramatically once you hire an architect to design these homes, and how things...
Yeah. What I've been told when I talked to the city, just like we did on the house at 916, if we fully engineer the plans with all the structural lumber and everything else, we always we always engineer our full plans and everything like that. That sufficed for what we needed to do as far as the city side's going. As far as the actual lot split goes and everything like that, we've already had in-depth conversations about how we needed to do it with the city, and also talked with the civil engineer on how that is possible. Making the driveway by code, how wide it has to be for a fire truck to go through it, making that a common access ground, and each individual house has its own lot. The water meters would be located in front of each property. There would be the only unique aspect of it would be the front property would have a longer property line reaching towards the back to get to the sewer.
And so you've already, what I heard there was fire lane, and I know minimum fire lane is 24 feet, but...
Yeah, for a fire truck to get into the lot.
Which is how wide this is, which is out of character, so how do you slim it?
Sorry, say that one more time.
This is shown at 24 feet, which
Yeah.
is my understanding the width of a fire lane. And then, so that's something I don't understand how that's going to play out.
Well, we got told that it had to be 24 feet, so we made it the 24 feet.
I understand, and that's the part that I'm concerned because it's out of character with the cottage district. We discourage driveways as it is.
We discourage them when there is alley access, but when there's not alley access, we have to allow driveways. Now, granted, this is wider than any driveway that's existing in Cottage District, but that's the only distinction.
Right, and it's being imposed upon the site that this wide driveway would be forced.
By the fire code, yes.
But I think what Brian is saying, Adam, is that if it was a single-family house, you wouldn't have to have such a wide.
Of course,
Or
absolutely.
if you just had the front building, you wouldn't have to have fire access.
For sure, and I agree. And there are other homes on the street that, that have split the lot, let's say down the middle, that have a driveway on either side that still encompass on one lot have 24 feet of driveway. So we were just kind of going with, what's trending in the neighborhood and, and still following the rules as far as that goes.
Anything else right now from commission members? Are there any members of the audience who would like to speak about this item? Yes, sir. When you come up, I'll just remind you to state your name.
Yes, hello, my name is Dr. Kyle Muse. I am the sole resident at 919 Northwest 8th, which is literally 2 doors down from this construction, which there is a vacant lot in between. My main concern is not necessarily the demolition or the new construction. It has to do with the sheer number. It's fitting 3 small buildings up on basically a concrete slab. And looking at it, the fact of the matter is there may possibly be 6 of those. There is no parking. When I say no parking for visitors, such as on the north side of 8th Street between Francis and Classen is posted, no parking anytime. But I believe that to be a fire lane. That has never been enforced, but I believe with new visitors coming into these new residents, particularly the 6 new residents, there's going to be multiple people parking on the street, basically blocking the fire lane and unprotecting my home. Also, I'm concerned about the sale of these properties. Are they going to maintain the $200 a square foot that the rest of us who have built or have bought, are they going to maintain our property values? I bought my home back in May of 2013. I paid a little over 200 square foot, and of course the property has since increased in property value. Of course, my property taxes have tripled in the last year. These are my concerns. I have no problem with the Hawes brothers. I like their construction. I like their ideas. I just think 3 is too many. A duplex in that lot has been done down the street, and I think it works. It's not necessarily what I want. I wanted what I wanted. That was a single home on a single family dwelling, or a single lot, and so that's what I wanted. And now that we're looking at basically putting in small stackable apartments, which also impede my privacy. I sit down lower on an elevation than these are going to be built. My house is 2 stories high with a rooftop balcony and a back patio and a 2nd-story balcony, which all will be visible from a 4th floor balcony, let alone that they have multiple patios, catwalks, and windows facing the west, which without a property in between my property and theirs is basically this complete view of my home and, of course, my property, and as I said, my privacy. Besides that, I'm not against construction or progress. I'm just against this one. Yes.
Dr. Muse, let me, for your benefit and for others, let me help frame the discussion a little bit. And Michael, I'm going to ask you to correct me where I'm wrong. But there's the issue of the code, the DTD1 code, and the code doesn't require parking. Rightly or wrongly, it does not require parking. Also, in that area of the Cottage District, a person could build a fourplex. Mm-hmm. It's within the code, and the height limits are 50 feet. So that's the code that we're working with, and so things kind of within that envelope are allowed. Now, however, that said, it sounds like you're saying something similar to what Mr. Fitzsimmons said, which was the scale is...
Yeah, and they had mentioned that there would be a small yarded area towards the back, which is an alley. I would like to have my alley back. It would make access to my garage a lot easier than me having to drive all the way back. And I don't have a problem them doing the demolition from behind, but yes, it is overgrown. And I've noticed that there's actually trees growing where the alley used to be, but I noticed they're putting a lot of alleys up and down between 7th, 8th, and 9th. I would personally really like to have my alley back, even though I was never there, of course, when it was there, but I know where it was, and that's something. And of course, with the vacant lot in between, I have contacted, the owner's son of that property, and they have no ambition or intention on selling or developing anytime soon. So once again, there will be a vacant lot there, and as far as I know, for as long as they necessarily want it to be. But yeah, like I said, I really have no objections to the development or demolition of the property. It's just the actual construction and the idea.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
do you mind waiting until, okay, thank you. Yes,
Hello, my name's Kevin Thurman. I live at, I don't live, I own the property at 922 Northwest 8th, which is directly south of where this property is. And I'm pretty much in line with Dr. Muse on this. It's single-family residence is what the Cottage District was planned. I've lived down there since 2003, so I've seen, when I moved down there was nothing. And since that time, there's been a lot of development going on. And just for it being single-family residence, I'm definitely against having 3 units put on there. And I didn't know of the other 3 he was planning if he does get the other lot. I just think that the density is I just think that it's just too much down there for the Cottage District. And the other problem I have is everybody that's come down there and built has basically gone in there and raised the whole lot and defoliated the neighborhood drastically. I'm up to, I think it's 73 trees now that have been cleared out of that district just in the last 4 years. And so that's all I have to say.
okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Ann Dell. I live at 925 Northwest 8th Street. We've lived there about a year now. I guess my issue is, I agree with the parking problems and all the concrete problems. I think that's going to be an issue. And the density of those possibly 6 units on those 2 lots. But I guess I have another issue, and that's that these guidelines, the DTD guidelines sound great, but Oklahoma City has not a very good record of maintaining and staying within certain guidelines, especially with property maintenance. Their code enforcement has not been very good. We lived for 41 years in Mesta Park, and they were continual issues. Oklahoma City just doesn't enforce things, probably because of lack of money or something, but it relies on individuals to take care of their property. And in certain neighborhoods, that doesn't happen. And if these units are so dense and sort of smallish, I just wonder if the potential owners or people who live there will actually maintain those. And I'm curious, like, where is the pleasant public space in the Cottage District? Where is that going to be? Where are the pedestrian amenities, the enhancement of existing structures, and the cultural significance? Those are all in your guidelines, but I'm not sure how they will be enhanced by all this. I mean, pardon me for being skeptical, but I am a little bit skeptical about how this will actually turn out in the end. That's my main concern. I would like to see something nice and modern built there, because our house is modern, and I want to see something that really does enhance that street. And I don't want the end of our street to sort of be the high-density part. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the audience? Yes, sir.
Very briefly, my name is Brian Dell. I'm her husband, so I'm going to say amen to everything that was said by Dr. Muse and by Mr. Thurman, as well as for her. I sent, and I presume you had a copy of the letter that I sent last Monday with regard to the things. I'm kind of interested in, because of the fact that, like she mentioned, that we've been involved in Mesta Park and historical preservation for 40-odd years or so, and that it was interesting that this house, however historical it may have been, the one that is now requested to be torn down, was in good condition at the time that it was purchased back in November. Since that time, it's been left vacant. People have been, I don't know who, in fact, have been carrying off the windows and doors, and as the pictures that you've seen of that property indicate, it's just been abandoned, basically. Whether that's part of the thing in your consideration with regard to, it appears to be something for consideration, at least with regard to the approval of this particular thing. Looking at the DTD1 zoning, or if that is in fact what it might be called zoning, it seemed to be an indication that it wanted to have places that would be pedestrian friendly as well as nice spaces. Looking at the diagram, and while I know that the Halls brothers have built a good house directly across the street from us, as well as up the street on 8th Street, this thing looks like it's just a big plug that's going to be put on a very small lot, what I consider at least to be a small lot, same size as the house that we have down at the corner on Classen at 8th Street. This is going to be a situation where those 2 houses in the back, if it's in fact done, to have inline garage,
it's hard for me to imagine those people, whoever went into that garage first, or they're the ones going to be leaving, it's going to be a problem. So I don't ever see 2 cars getting parked in those garages. It'd be very rare that it did. As was noted, there may not be any restrictions with regard to DGD-1 with regard to parking, but it's going to be an enormous problem in our neighborhood if it's going to be so dense and with such a problem already as I described with the unlined parking. Those 2 people in the back are going to end up parking on the street, whether there's anything there or not. So our concern, as she stated, as they all stated, is that we put a lot of money in there. It's going to be a real problem for us because there's going to be nothing but cars on that street. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience? Mr. Haas, did you want to respond to?
I'll try to remember everything. As far as the home values go, as that being a concern, there's a multitude of multifamily lots that have sold for well over what they sold for 2 years ago, even last year. So we're actually optimistic to say that it'll improve property value rather than decrease it like other projects have in the area. As far as parking goes, we've added, especially around the back there, where those 2 houses are, there's actually plenty of, based on the measurements, there's plenty of parking space for, you and to have a guest come over, so they don't have to park in the street. That was a consideration of ours. We strive to make very functional homes, and that, of course, being one of them. In regards to, lack of privacy, we've added the privacy screens for everybody's kind of privacy, because nobody wants to be sitting totally exposed on top of, a 3-story building in the wind or anything. So we added those carefully to make sure everybody still maintains some privacy. But in that case, because, like it was mentioned, our lot is higher, any 2-story structure that we put up there with a rooftop deck or even no rooftop deck, by sheer, line of sight, until there's a house built there, there's going to be, some visibility, here and there around the properties. I mean, it doesn't matter what we put on there, that's going to happen. Sorry. And then, other than that, we definitely strive to make sure that we fit this house into these houses into the exact same kind of format that everybody else in the neighborhood's been doing, but make it, putting our own touch on them, and, high quality house that would, when we did 916, as we're doing 916, we're getting plenty of interest in the property, but a lot of requests for, smaller homes, more affordable, like, a smaller square footage just to live downtown. So we're trying to offer that as well. So.
Your point, if I'm understanding it, is that the absolute price would be lower because the square footage is smaller than some of the other homes. However, the amenities and the amenities you're putting in, you would still command a
luxury.
A commensurate high price per square foot.
Absolutely.
So you would try to allay some of the concerns of the residents here by saying it's going to be upscale, and the people who come in are going to be the sorts of people who will take care of what they've purchased in that.
Yeah, just like on 916, how we, in that proposal, we wanted to make sure we spray foam, engineered foundations, and everything that we could do to offer a very high quality product to our customers. That obviously elevates the price of a home. Given that if we put a 4,000 square foot house on this single lot, it would be a very expensive home. So instead, a smaller home, it appeals to a broader market, which really that area wants. So,
let me ask you this question: if I think we've heard from the residents in the area that they like your work, they've seen what you do, it's quality, they feel good about it, and as Commissioner Fitzsimmons said, the issue, assuming that you get the lot split and that we make that a condition, the issue seems to be it's just too much, and that maybe what you're doing is with the required fire access and that sort of thing, and the stories and the number of the buildings and their proximity. Is there a potential compromise here where you're just not doing quite so much with that lot that was a small single-family house before?
Well, I mean, we weighed plenty of options, when doing that. There's duplexes on the same street that actually their footprint takes up more than our 3 footprints would, which is fine. I mean, it fits in, it looks good. There's the Lisbon Lofts, that's more units on those lots than what we're doing, right? We were trying to give people everything they wanted, which was, a single-family home instead of attached, instead of shared walls, instead of throwing, up a fourplex or something, right? We were striving to, give the neighborhood what it wanted and in a really kind of good-looking way, right, which fits into the trend that the neighborhood's going into. So, I mean, we truly did. We added, extra landscaping. Oh, actually, the alleyway thing, we actually designed it that if they did decide to put an alleyway there, it's fine. They can go through, and the people in the back still have a backyard.
You mentioned Lisbon Lofts, and so I want to talk about density a little bit, because there is clearly a tension about density. The people, part of the cottage district, part of the quality of it is it's not incredibly dense, but part of what the city's goal is for all of Midtown is to increase the density, because then more amenities come in. So the question is to what extent you should increase density, and I think, and you're on about, is it a sixth of an acre? Do you recall off the top of your head?
Probably just over a sixth.
So 3 units, a sixth of an acre, that's 18 dwelling units per acre. Lisbon Lofts, I think, is about 20 dwelling units per acre, and so I'm just trying to do the comp in my head. So Lisbon Lofts is on a much more traffic street across from St. Anthony's, actually across from the St. Anthony parking structure, and you're almost at the same density as they are in that location, whereas you're in the cottage district, in a more residential location. And I'm not trying to draw any major conclusion here, but I am trying to say that you're at a very comparable density, yet they're at a different type of location. So as I try to figure out densities and duplexes, 2 houses versus 3, it seems that you're kind of pushing the envelope, at least in terms of comps within that area.
As far as like comps, is like sale, like
I mean density
or
comps.
just comparable, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tough. We weren't trying to push the envelope. We were trying to do something really cool that would have a good feel to it. You have a camaraderie of people living in a neighborhood, that all have the same interests. That's what we were striving for. We want to have it, really nice, really modern, fun. Like I said, the neighborhood's going. Our side of the street, there's more older homes on there. Some that there will be future plans to demolish. Some that may stay a few more years. They're all kind of getting to the end of life, so I imagine, as everybody's picking up lots in the area, that our side of the street's going to, develop just the same. Everybody wants that street to be modern, right? I mean, I don't think there's any argument there. I mean, just like 916 and everything like that, and that's all we were striving to do, is just make, something, really exciting. Actually, when you're looking at the duplex, like doing 2 units on it, right, versus the 3, the 2 units become bigger, just inherently, just because of the way the garages work and everything like that. And, we were trying also to really try not to have, and we did a good job of it, not have any front-facing garages, even though we don't have alley access, right? So, we did our due diligence in just trying to make sure that this is going to, it would be a really good, and what we would consider a staple on our side of the street, and really kind of boost the interest up in our side of the street, so it doesn't get left behind in all this. So, I mean, there's a lot of thought process. That's why we had to extend it, because I mean, we really wanted to make an amazing project. It's our kind of stamp as far as that stuff goes.
Have you Have you had a chance to sit down with any of the neighbors, other than in this forum here, but just sit down with them and walk them through your design? And
No, just because of, the chaos of building the house across the street, and, I think they live very busy lives as well. We've only crossed paths a couple times, I've spoken to everybody, but I don't think we had a chance to sit down and talk about it in depth and kind of show, because I think you're, in one thing prospectively, unless you see it built there, our 2,600 square foot house looked like a giant when you have it on one page.
right, I think that's an excellent point you're making, an excellent point. And one of the things I was going to think about you're doing, and just let you know where I'm going, I'm kind of thinking continuance here, and I think it would be helpful to us and also to the neighbors to understand, just like you said, how do these structures fit in with the street as a whole? So if there's some type of rendering you can do, either with elevations for the perspective, with these planned houses and other houses on the street, and in the past in the Cottage District, we've had builders meet with residents when there's been this kind of a turnout, which I have to tell you, this is a big turnout, in opposition to what you're doing. I just want to help frame it for you.
Yeah.
And if there's a way of meeting with everyone, showing them these materials, seeing if after looking at the materials they understand a bit more of what your vision is, and maybe they get a little bit okay with it, or you have a frank discussion and there might be some things you can do that don't really impact the P&L of what you're trying to do, but that make the neighbors feel better about the scale and the presentation.
Oh, we want to have everybody happy, we always extend it out there, and, and given the opportunity, of course we would, because we're going to be in this neighborhood for a long time. We're doing stuff up and down the street, so we don't want anybody mad at us or, thinking we're not, doing justice to the neighborhood.
Exactly, and it sounds like people like your work, so there's something to work with here. I don't want to monopolize the discussion. Were there other comments or ideas, questions from the commission?
So I agree with the parking concerns, but just based on the comment, it does not seem like something we can address here. Is that accurate?
Yes, parking is not required in this area.
And, I will reiterate the 24-foot wide drive is a concern. And as far as looking at the materials, one material that is concerning to me is the EIFS. If it is EIFS, is that?
Yeah, if it's EIFS, it presents some problems because there are limitations in the code as to how much of
20%.
Yes, and so you'd either have to condition it to make the EIFS they're proposing stucco, or we'd have to go into some kind of analysis to determine whether or not they're compliant with the percentage.
The other issue with the EIFS is does it correspond to what else is in the area? And if everybody else has stucco, that's an argument against EIFS in my personal opinion.
And there's also the R panel. That's, I think, would be hard-pressed to call that architectural metal panel. R panel is the go-to panel for barn siding.
The R panel?
In your depiction, your metal panel? Call it an R panel?
Yeah.
I'm familiar with the profile, and that's typically not considered an architectural panel.
There should be a picture coming up here.
And the guidelines require that it be architectural quality metal rather than typical barn siding.
Oh, yeah, it absolutely is, just like 916 across the street. Similar material, same company providing it. It's an architectural material, and I'm pretty sure it met all their requirements before. So, and as far as the stucco goes, I'm pretty sure, or the EIFS goes, I'd have to double check and make sure it was under the 20%, but it would be a point of contention at all turning it into stucco. That's not, the final product ends up looking very similar, so that's not an issue at all.
All right. Any other questions, comments, motions? Matt?
I know we're talking about the redevelopment of the property at this point, and I share some of the similar concerns about the density. I also have a concern about the demolition, actually. I passed by the property and walked through the house. It first of all appears that the demolition has already started. And from a safety point of view and liability point of view, from your point of view, it is bad shape. I'm not talking about the condition of the property. I'm talking about the security of the property. There are no doors. There are no windows. I don't understand, especially if you are maintaining a construction crew across the street, why it's not at the very minimum boarded up.
For sure. And we actually were just we were thinking we were going to be here a lot earlier because we actually applied for the demolition permit, and then we got delayed. And what had happened is over Christmas break, somebody had taken it upon themselves, and they said they had permission from the owner, which they definitely did not. I don't know who it is, who over the Christmas break actually went over and dismantled the house. I mean, they took shingles off. I mean, they went crazy. And when we caught them the first time, they started coming at night. So absolutely, we need to and we want to board up the house and get it working. We're hoping, we were just hoping just to demo the house and be, done and have a nice clean lot. So we didn't have that liability, because even when we've boarded up houses, people break in, they sleep in the houses, they do all kinds of bad things, and we don't want that at all, especially from the liability standpoint.
So the demolition that's already been started was done not by you, it's by...
Yeah. Some consignment gentleman, as far as I know. I actually had told the neighbor next door that when I went to demolish the house, that he was welcome to all the things he needed to repair his home. And he had called me up actually just after Christmas and when, agitated with me saying, hey, I thought you told me. And I didn't, I had to get in my car and drive straight down there because I had no idea they had just gone there and done that. So we definitely, obviously at this point, need to board the house up. So.
Okay. So I don't know what the outcome of today is, but what's the plans to board it up, or why?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm not going to lie and say, there was a financial decision in there. We were hoping to get through this process and get it demolished last month, and there would be zero concerns.
Okay.
Anything else? Any motions? Questions?
If the motion is to continue it, if whoever makes the motion could start articulating what you want the applicant to come back with. I've heard determination on the EFS, improved site plans.
Site plans and perspective drawings to show the proposed structures in relation to...
If whoever motions could make that clear.
Okay, excellent.
On that note also, what about the demolition? Could that be something separate if we do continue this?
You could motion for it separately if you so desired.
Do you have any thoughts on that? No? Okay.
Also, given whatever work is determined to be necessary to bring it back before the commission, we probably need to have some consideration given to the timing, because to go back in April if there's any changes of any substance, we would need plans on that in about 10 days from now. And therefore, I'm not even sure how quickly they can get together with the neighborhood residents and so on and so forth and hash any of these things out. So it may need to be to the May meeting if there's a substantial amount of work to be done in the revised plans.
I guess one thing that I don't know if there's an answer for, but is a roof deck on top of a 3-story house that is intended to be occupied, is that considered a 4th-story or not?
Check with fire on that.
Okay, well, so trying to move this thing forward, I just want to double check with members of the audience. Was anyone here to speak against the demolition? Was that an issue with anyone? No, it wasn't. Was it an issue with anyone? The security clearly was for Matt, but in terms of demoing the building, was that an issue with anyone, given the materials in the packet? Okay, well, I think that's a good idea, Jeff. Why don't we separate these two, and why don't we entertain a motion on the demolition, and then let's entertain a motion on the continuance. And from your perspective, do you want to try to get on next month's UDC agenda, or do you think that, given the timing that Michael has laid out, that that's pushing a little bit quick?
Yeah. Not 10 days, but the next day.
So the May?
Yeah.
May? Okay.
He does most of the render work and everything, actually all of the render work and everything. It's kind of his baby, so if he needs that, then.
Okay, terrific. Okay, so having said that, any motions?
Okay. Make a motion to continue the case. At a minimum, we need clarification on materials, how the site would actually be platted. I would have concerns about the width of the driveway, clarification on whether it's a 4-story according to the fire codes, and make that continuance until...
In drawings and schematics showing...
Yeah, drawings and schematics showing actual scale and elevation to adjacent houses and properties, and then make that till the May meeting. May 27th. Is that right? Okay.
And is that for the whole item, or did you want to carve out the demo piece?
That would be only for item B.
Okay.
So we'll continue that part.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, that is Fitzsimmons and Guillory. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that piece is continued. And then did we have a motion on the demolition?
I'll make a motion to approve demolition.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, that is Guillory and Struble. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Okay, that passes. Thank you very much. And thanks to everyone for coming down here. I know it's kind of a time sink. Appreciate it.
I would like to add, this isn't necessarily, I purposely didn't make this part of the continuance, but I do think you need to clarify whether you need an architect on this, because it's state of Oklahoma that requires an architect for anything over 2 stories.
Correct, yes. And if we have to, we'll absolutely bring one in for sure. So I'll clarify that with the city.
I think Brian's concern is that we don't want to approve a design that then gets changed significantly when you do bring in the architect.
On that note, just so the commission knows, if it were to change at some point down the road because of, for whatever reason, whether it's involvement of an architect or for whatever reason, it would have to come back to us for a revision to the CA. And if in the future, if and when the commission decides to make a motion to approve the new development, they could condition those revisions to come back to the commission instead of going to staff.
I think that's a great idea, Michael, especially given the neighborhood concern about this project. Thanks for suggesting that. Okay. All right. Well, I think we're done with this item then. Thank you very much. All right. Other business, 7A, the Oklahoma City Downtown Development Framework.
Yes, I think many of you were in attendance at the workshop we had on February 13th, where Ian Colgan, our assistant director, presented the downtown framework. This is slightly modified. It's been tweaked a little bit since that meeting and other meetings. But if you aren't familiar or weren't at the meeting, I don't, okay. The intent of the framework is to guide public and private investments. So it's presented as a series of guidelines, but it in and of itself is not an ordinance. So it's to guide development specifically aimed at developers, to make it clear what the city wants to see in terms of density, street improvements, and the like. Just the FYI, I guess, in regards to the most recent discussion, it does promote quite a bit of density for the cottage district. Median, it cites a medium and low density residential that's anywhere from 12 to 50 dwelling units potentially. So.
Yeah, but actually on that particular block, I was just like.
On that block,
Yeah, I think
it's 8 to 12.
Yeah,
It's 8 to
12 is the max. Yeah, and that's.
But, I mean, it's.
Right, again, it's keeping
Yeah.
with everything else the city's doing. We're trying to build density down there.
Yeah, but so over the over the next, so we are asking today for the committee's recommendation to Planning Commission. It'll go to Planning Commission, and then it will be adopted by City Council, and at that point, we'll begin coming back through the guideline, your ordinances, to bring the various regulations and guidelines in alignment with the framework. For example, some things identified in here we're going to clarify in terms of regulations, like limits on blank walls and facade transparency. Right now in your guidelines on downtown, they are guidelines. So we want to strengthen those to regulations because we think that will help reinforce the intent of the framework. Some things like street walls, height and lot coverage, those are already regulations, but they'll be beefed up a little bit for the most part. Then there's other guidelines like landscape buffers, awnings, first, second floor delineation, percentage of building, that and sidewalk zone width that already exist as a guideline, but they're not very well defined. They'll be further defined as a guideline. And then building lobby percentage doesn't even exist in the downtown ordinance yet, but there'll be a section for that. So there's no other sections of the Urban Design Commission's purview that will be affected by this other than the cottage district. So I hope I'm prepared to answer any detailed questions you have about it. Otherwise, like I say, we're asking for your recommendation to Planning Commission. It doesn't make sense for the commission to just straight up adopt this as a reference tool because it's all laid out as a guideline, and it wouldn't be very useful to you to reference in your decisions. So that's why we're going to translate part of it into your ordinance sections. Does that make sense?
It does, but are you going to, for example, like the density question we just had today, are you going to put some of these density guidelines into the code?
Yes.
Okay. Were there any other questions for Lisa?
Do we make any recommendations, or we just hear it?
If you have
I don't have any changes. I don't know if there's anything formal that we're supposed to be doing.
Yes, it's in the staff report.
The staff suggests recommendation approval to the Planning Commission. So a motion would be to that effect.
I've got a quick question. Is there an intent to expand this? Capitol Hill is a good example of an area that's just outside of it. Is there an intent to expand the plan in order to, once it's adopted, in order to incorporate some of these peripheral areas that are within our districts?
Michael, is Capitol Hill, is that reviewed under UDC guidelines or
That's
downtown
UDC.
guidelines? Okay, then no. There is not currently, but the next phase of guideline improvement is going to be UDC areas as a whole. And at that time, we've done some very preliminary work on this. We want to be better at defining the various areas, because right now the guidelines are largely the same across Asian District, Capitol Hill, Uptown, Plaza, and we want to differentiate those further. So that will be a next phase of improvements. So no, this will not affect Capitol Hill.
Any other questions? Any motions?
I'll make a motion to approve recommendation to the Planning Commission.
Okay, motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, that is Fitzsimmons and Jernico. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. Item 7B, Long Nguyen. To adopt a resolution recognizing Long Nguyen for his service to the Urban Design Commission. Michael or Lisa?
I had to.
Okay.
Who wants to read it?
I'll read it.
Okay.
A resolution of the Urban Design Commission of the City of Oklahoma City acknowledging Long Nguyen for his valuable service and dedication to the Urban Design Commission, whereas Long Nguyen has faithfully devoted his time and expertise to serve the citizens of Oklahoma City as an Urban Design Commission member from December 2007 to February 2015, and whereas the Commission has benefited greatly from Long Nguyen's expertise as a business owner within the Asian District and as an active member of the Oklahoma City Vietnamese community, and whereas Long Nguyen has demonstrated uncommon dedication to the Commission through his methodical attention to detail and earnest regard for the applicable standards and guidelines in the consideration of projects presented to the Commission, and whereas Long Nguyen's participation in Commission deliberations has always been characterized by a steadfast and constant perseverance to promote the revitalization and enhancement of the various design districts subject to Commission review, and whereas Long Nguyen has consistently treated applicants, citizens, fellow Commission members, and staff with respect and courtesy, and now, therefore, be it resolved that the Urban Design Commission hereby respectfully commends Long Nguyen for his outstanding years of service to the Urban Design Commission of the City of Oklahoma City, adopted by the Urban Design Commission of the City of Oklahoma City on this 25th day of March 2015.
Give me an opportunity to work with you so many years. It's very close with happy and to know, understand, and how to public serving for the Oklahoma City people. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's 2 copies going around for signature, and then a motion is appropriate.
I make a motion to accept what George just read.
To adopt the resolution.
Adopt the resolution.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second. Okay, that's Fitzsimmons and Struble. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. That motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Lon. That's great.
I need to learn to read the recommended language of the motions.
Bye-bye, Lon. Okay, 8A, communications, administrative approval reports. Michael, are there any of these you want to call out especially?
Well, the biggest thing in there is numerous bike racks that are being placed in a variety of locations throughout the area covered by the UD district, including Capitol Hill, Paseo, and 23rd Street, and Plaza. So that's a big improvement that I think will be welcomed by a lot of people that live in and near those areas. A couple of signs, a new fence for the back of Pizzeria Gusto, small revision to the OCCC campus that was approved a couple months back in Capitol Hill, and that's, there's a statue posed for the median that is in the Paseo district. It has to do with Joy Belt. That's about it.
Okay, terrific. Board of Adjustment announcement. I guess we can read it. That it was 607 Northwest 7th Street was given a variance. City Council. We have new members: Donna Cervantes, Ben Sellers, and Jorge Janico. And I didn't know if you guys wanted to just give a little intro about yourselves, maybe 30 seconds.
Sure. Ben Sellers, happy to be here. I believe I replaced Mr. Wynn's chair here, and I'm a property owner and developer on 23rd Street and Plaza District.
Thank you.
Jorge Chernico. It's a pleasure to be here, and I am an architect. I've been an architect here in Oklahoma City for the past 22 years. Done a lot of work in the area, and proud to have an opportunity to serve.
Terrific. Thank you. And then Donna is at some OKC Arts Commission training or something or other, and so is not able to be here, and maybe not next month either. And then Betsy is still here, but she was moved around to she now represents the Downtown Design Review Committee. Any additional comments from Planning Department staff?
Yeah, could we, for a couple of minutes, I don't think we circled back around in the discussion on the Haas's project, to what density is sought in Midtown. I'm not sure I got a good sense of to what extent the commission felt it was appropriate in Cottage District.
Well,
in your opinion.
Well, I think the framework is probably more correct than the direction they're going. A low to medium density makes sense for that small area. If we get stacks upon stacks of houses, it does devalue a lot of the momentum and investment that was made by people. So you have to be careful with that.
Personally, I think it's an issue of not just density, but of scale. And I think that, as Brian was kind of alluding at the very beginning of the meeting, where you've got to put that 24-foot drive in so you have fire access, it starts to look less like a cottage district and more like a different district. And you don't have the same rhythm of the streets, and you don't have the same feel. So not that there shouldn't be additional density. Without question, we should strive to get to that. I think that 8 to 12 number is dwelling units per acre is not a bad range. But this and the scale of it and the way it was changing the neighborhood just seemed to rub against the grain.
To me, I mean, you made the point, George, that they're at a very close density to the development that's happening on Chartel, which is a much busier. This is the middle of a block. I mean, this is going very high density for a middle of the block and not in keeping with everything else that's on the block. The 8 to 12 number, that is where, just so I understand fully, where is that and to what extent can we rely on that?
Well, if the math was correct, they were hitting 18, so 8 to 12 would probably be a duplex or...
Right, a duplex or two houses. That's a standard lot, as I believe it's, well, the vacant of the alley, but I think it's 50 by 140 or something thereabouts. So that 7,000 square foot is about a sixth of an acre. So if you had two dwelling units on that, that'd be about 12.
Right, and then I guess what I'm asking is where that doesn't appear, it appears as a guideline.
Right now, it appears, well, they're referencing the numbers in the framework.
Right, but that's not
Which isn't
public
official.
yet, right?
Well, it's public in terms of, it's been at public meetings, but it hasn't been adopted.
Okay.
But we can do a fourplex, right? That's what I understood also, a duplex or up to a fourplex
Yeah.
under 50 feet.
Yeah, so for kind of the center zone, it's on page 18 and 19 of your books, if you have them.
Yep.
The center zone, the block where this project was, is low-density residential, which is 18 to 12 units an acre, a low-density housing inclusive of single-family detached and attached and small multifamily structures.
But, and to go back to the code, which I think Jeff raises a great point, you would be allowed to put up a fourplex of two-bedroom units, right?
Yeah, that'd be...
And you're allowed to go 50 feet high, which is higher than they're going, and you're allowed to have no parking, and they have some parking. So I don't think the code precludes necessarily those specific sections preclude what they're trying to do. However, I think the larger section of the code that actually I think we were going to apply to 6B if we had heard it, does the structure fit the neighborhood and the surrounding structures and the look and feel and keep the housing pattern? That's where I think it doesn't really, where it might need some work.
Well, I think it does. It's just the extra house. One question I had too, Brian, if there was just two structures, would that bring up the fire lane? Or is that third structure?
No, what's bringing up the fire lane, I believe, is the fact that and that's part of a big concern is, okay, yeah, you can go in and divide up a lot 100 different ways. I can divide it into 6. Mm-hmm. It's the fact that you're now having a structure that's not accessed from the public way, where the property doesn't necessarily abut the public way. That's, I think, where the fire lane probably comes in.
Rita was just reminding, we need to not discuss a specific case without that.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
In general. I was like, well, my question was in general.
I would say that in general, when people come in with an issue like this, you can meet, it's my understanding, you can meet with the point person from the fire department, and if you, for example, will decide to sprinkle your buildings, they'll make certain trade-offs with you and they'll work with you. So we might encourage applicants in general who are facing this kind of an issue to meet with those people when they're doing their designs.
Yeah. Well, I remember not too long ago that we had somebody wanting to do a lot of cement up front, and they got denied because the parking issue in the front, because it wanted to push for the backyard, back.
Right, but they were actually going to park cars in front, weren't they? Wasn't that on 7th Street?
It's the driveway, but they're going to be,
they're going to park.
a lot of cement.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I have against it.
That's a great point, yeah. And it's too bad that in general cases where there happens to be a lot of concrete, where we can't do some type of pervious, how are we coming on that, by the way, the use of pervious surfaces?
Nowhere, it keeps getting approved for a variance. I keep not seeing very much installed to make an informed opinion. So.
But yeah, those are all great points, Jeff. Thanks.
Yeah, and the density on how a lot is divided, that does play a role. And if a parcel is divided where the properties are only in the back or adjacent to an alley, in some cases not adjacent to an alley, it becomes a very different pattern than what's there. It's not strictly about density. That's oversimplifying it. It's about the pattern. So.
If you're talking about that density on a corner, that makes more sense too than in the middle of the block. But where does that come into play? I don't know.
Yeah, I wanted to hear a little bit more for future reference.
Okay. Any other comments for Lisa? Okay. Anything else? Any additional comments from planning staff? And if not, any comments from commission members? No? Okay. The next meeting date is here on your agenda. If there are no objections, we will consider ourselves adjourned by unanimous consent. Thank you.